Welcome to another edition of A Week of Mass Shootings. So after I posted last week's video, 4 more mass shootings were reported for January 28th, which should have made it into last week's video. And these occurred in Memphis, Tennessee, where 2 died and 2 were injured. Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, 4 were injured. Compton, California, 4 were injured. And the Compton one was a flash mob. Palm Bay, Florida, 3 were killed and 2 were injured, and that one was domestic violence. So we're going to start this week's on January 29th. There were 4 reported, at least as of right now, from January 29th to February 4th, and hopefully more don't pop up tomorrow morning. But there were 4, so we're going to start on the 29th in Grenada, Mississippi, where 4 were injured. And this is the first one for Grenada this year. It happened at 2:30 p.m. on Tuesday. And so in the middle of the afternoon, in the middle of the day, all the victims were adult males. The shooter fired into an apartment from outside. And that one was at 7:51. This one was weird because there were 2 reported actually that day. So there were 4 shot in the afternoon and 4 shot that night, but they only reported one of them as a mass shooting. So I think the other one must have come back as a triple shooting, but there were 2 separate shootings that day, one at 2:30 in the afternoon and one at 7:51 p.m. I don't know a whole lot about this Grenada, Mississippi town, but if you have that many shootings in one, or 2 large shootings like that in one day, it's likely not a very safe place to be. So there were none reported for January 30th. So we go to January 31st in New Orleans, where 1 was killed and 3 injured. And this was the second one for New Orleans. And New Orleans is one of 3 cities that have reported multiple mass shootings this year so far. I mean, they had 2 just in the month of January in New Orleans. The victims were 2 adults and 2 teens, and it happened at 1:15 a.m., which you'd have to ask yourself, why are there teenagers out at 1:15 a.m.? And only their parents could answer that question. And this one basically just says investigators are gathering evidence still. The cause is unknown on this one. Again, on January 31st in Louisville, Kentucky, 1 was killed and 3 were injured. And this is the first one for Louisville this year. The victims were all adult males, but they were like young adults in their early 20s. 22-year-old Corey Dillard was the one that was killed. The other 3 were in critical condition at the time of my making this video, so it's possible that this one will end up with more deaths than are reported right now. Again, this one happened at 12:30 in the afternoon, right in the middle of the day, and they were sitting in a car in the Russell neighborhood, and they were just shot inside their car, sitting in their car. And the city of Louisville didn't release crime data to the FBI in the last couple years, so it's hard to know like if that was a bad area or not, because the city's not cooperating and releasing the crime data like they're supposed to. So any data you see on the city is somebody making a good guess kind of on what the city is, going by past history of the city, and not on actually what the crime is in the city, because you can't make a honest assessment when you don't have the actual data. And there were none reported for February 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, which will likely see some pop up as during that time reported as, late reported, though, because it is extremely rare for us to go 3 days without a mass shooting. It is really rare. I mean, 2 days, fine, that happens, but 3, it doesn't happen very often. Yeah, we're in February, but even still, that's it. Likely one will just come up, reported late, or they just didn't, something, for whatever reason, it'll pop up, in later on this week or something like that. Okay, so we'll go to February 4th, and Denver, Colorado, where 2 were killed and 4 injured. And this is the first one for Denver this year. And the 2 that died were an adult male and a teen male. And this was a house party, which is the leading cause of mass shootings. And this happened in the Green Valley Ranch neighborhood. And violent crime in that area is bad, but it's nowhere near the worst area of Denver, but it's not a good area either. A group of uninvited guests arrived at the party and were met with gunfire. The teen that was killed was not involved in the conflict, though he was kind of just an innocent bystander in the whole thing, which is kind of how this stuff goes, is a lot of times it's, other people start something and some completely innocent person ends up getting hit by a stray bullet. And this one happened at 2:30 a.m. So again, you could go back to asking yourself, why is this kid at a house party at 2:30 a.m. and not home asleep in his bed? So that was the 4 from this past week. And on the year, we're at 37 mass shootings this year so far. And the top 6 causes are unknown, which is probably going to lead, because a lot of these, they have no idea. They never catch who the shooter is. And there's no reason. And the people that are the victims of a lot of these, they don't cooperate with the police. Nobody wants to talk about anything. So you don't ever really get a reason for a lot of these. So unknown is the leading cause, followed by large parties and arguments, which are the large gatherings or parties. Those are probably going to be the leading cause by the end of the year. And arguments are one of the leading causes of, homicides in America. So that being high isn't going to be a shock to anybody. Then we got domestic violence, drive-bys, and spree shootings. So that was 37 that we're at for the year, and we're still slightly behind pace from last year, but we're not really doing all that good either. This is a weekly video, so if you like this type of content, hit that like button, leave your thoughts in the comments, and consider subscribing. And I'll catch you next week.